The psychology of panic and the shadow of nature. You are not afraid of dying. You are afraid that, before you die, your mind will realize it was never in control. Panic is not an error of your nervous system. It is the exact moment your internal civilization collapses, and you are forced to look into the eyes of the beast you have tried to domesticate for millennia. You feel the air vanish because your soul is trying to scream through a body you treat like a machine. What we call a crisis is, in fact, a summons. You are being called back to the wild you should never have left. Today, you will discover that your panic has an ancient name, a flute, and goat horns, and what it has to tell you will forever change how you perceive your own sanity. Before we descend into the biological abyss, I need you to make a conscious decision. If this content resonates with the silence you feel at night, subscribe to Myths and Psyche. We are not just a channel. We are a map to the unexplored territories of your soul. Comment now. Have you ever felt that your fear was bigger than you? Suggest new themes and share this video with that person who lives in a state of high alert. Let's reclaim the territory of our minds together. The psychology of panic, the collapse of the digital ego. Modern panic is the divorce between intellect and instinct. We live in an era where we believe life can be cured by spreadsheets, algorithms, and blue light. We have built a digital ego, a thought structure that believes everything can be predicted, scheduled, and controlled. But panic is the proof that this structure is made of cardboard. In analytical psychology, we understand that panic occurs when the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted, becomes so rigid that it suffocates the inner life. Imagine you are in a modern glass building. You feel safe because the air is conditioned and the windows are sealed. Panic is the moment that glass shatters and the polar wind of reality invades the room. Your body begins to react to a danger your eyes cannot see because the danger isn't outside. It lies in the fact that you have become a stranger within yourself. What happens in the brain during a panic attack is a rebellion of the amygdala, our most primitive fear processing center. It takes command and shuts down the prefrontal cortex, the civilized part of the brain. Psychologically, this means your rational consciousness has been dethroned. You become purely biological. You become purely animal. And this is where science stops explaining and myth begins to scream. For this invasion of the irrational leads us to the heart of a forest that modernity tried to pave over. But if panic is just biology, why does it feel so supernatural? The answer is hidden in what the ancients called the absolute noon, a concept that will make you question the very silence of your home. The shadow of nature, the domain of Pan. For the ancient Greeks, panic was not a pathology. It was a theophany, the manifestation of a god. And that god was Pan. Pan did not dwell on Olympus with the aesthetic and solar deities. He lived in the gaps, the crevices, the forests where sunlight cannot touch the ground. He is the god of untamed nature. The shadow of nature is everything within us that refuses to be educated, voted on, or turned into a commodity. Pan is half man and half goat. He represents the bridge that was never broken between our intelligence and our ferocity. Panic earned its name because Pan used to startle travelers crossing his domains in the silence of high noon. Why at noon? Because it is the moment when there are no shadows. Everything is exposed. And it is in this total exposure that man realizes his insignificance before the immensity of the natural world. When you have a panic attack in the middle of a shopping mall or an office, you are, symbolically, crossing Pan's forest. The shadow of nature in you is reacting to the artificial environment. Your instinct is saying, this place is not real, this rhythm is not mine. I need space, I need air, I need truth. Pan plays his flute, and the sound is a dissonance that breaks the false harmony of your organized life. Jung said that the gods have become diseases. Pan, once honored in wild rituals, was repressed by Western civilization and transformed into the figure of the devil. But by repressing the god of nature, we transformed him into a symptom. The shadow of nature now manifests as phobias, generalized anxiety, and night terrors. We are not afraid of a horned devil. We are afraid of our own vitality that has been locked in the basement for too long and now wants to break down the door. You can try medication, you can try distractions, but Pan does not want to be silenced. He wants to be integrated. And the secret to this lies in a shift of perspective so profound, it might seem like madness to the common man. The integration, playing the flute with the beast. Understanding the psychology of panic and the shadow of nature leads us to an inevitable conclusion. Panic is a cry for help from your animal soul. The cure does not lie in calming down, but in listening. If you suffer from panic, you are not weak. On the contrary, you possess a psychic antenna sensitive enough to perceive that the life you are leading is insufficient for the size of your soul. Panic is the weight of nature trying to crush the lies you tell yourself. Practical examples of this are seen in people who reach the pinnacle of material success and suddenly cannot leave the house. Why? Because the ego arrived where it wanted to be, but the primal self, Pan, was left behind, dying of thirst. The shadow of nature demands tribute. This tribute is time. It is contact with the earth. It is respect for the body's rhythms. It is the acceptance that not everything in us is good or controlled. Accepting Medusa, accepting Pan, accepting the Minotaur in the labyrinth is the only path to harmony. When panic comes, do not fight it as if it were an invader. Imagine it is the god Pan returning home after centuries of exile. Breathe not to control yourself, but to give space for this wild force to move through your lungs without breaking them. The shadow of nature only scares us as long as we try to be only light. The moment we accept our darkness, Pan stops screaming and begins to play his flute to guide us. The psychology of panic teaches us that we are vast, dangerous, and magnificent beings. The shadow of nature reminds us that we are stardust and clay, and that our mental health depends on our loyalty to our biological and mythical roots. The question I leave you with is this. What have you been trying to silence in your life that panic needs to scream so loud? Perhaps what you call an illness is, in fact, the beginning of your liberation. I am the master of your script here at A Myths and Psyche. If you have made it this far, you are no longer the same person who started the video. Pan's forest is now a part of you. And remember, mythology is not something that happened in the past. It is something happening right now, within every beat of your racing heart. Until our next descent.